just how bad is the situation in Israel and in the Palestinian territories? Let's get insights from Embassy of Israel to Manila Deputy Chief of Mission Nir Balzam. Good evening, Mr. Balzam.
Good evening.
Let's start with something basic that a lot of Filipinos are trying to wrap their heads around, Mr. Balzam. Why is this happening now? The conflict has been there for decades. But why the escalation again?
Last Monday, the terrorist organization Hamas started to launch rockets toward Jerusalem and other areas in Israel. In 5 days, more than 1,700 rockets were fired towards civilian population. Currently, as we saw, millions of civilians, Israelis and non-Israelis, are under intense rocket fire in central and southern of Israel. Hamas is deliberately targeting civilians' population, and that's the main story here.
On the other side of it, of course, Mr. Balzam, people are looking at videos and news reports also on the Palestinian territories. They're also seeing civilian neighborhoods also suffering. Is there no way for this conflict, and not on both sides, not to be targeting civilian communities?
I think this is the main issue of this conflict. And again, the main blame is Hamas, because Hamas is committing a double war crime. It's hiding behind the civilian population of Gaza and shooting toward the civilian population of Israel. And as you saw, Hamas wanted to start to fire rockets at Israel. Israel has left Gaza Strip in 2005. There are no longer Israeli troops there. And with all the money and all the funds they get, instead of having another Singapore, we're having a terrorist area that, instead of investing in health, education, and the social population, they buy more missiles and just target civilians. And this is a very, very sad story for the population of Gaza.
But again, we are seeing the rockets coming into neighborhoods in Israel. We're also seeing airstrikes from Israel hitting neighborhoods in Palestine. As from what you could control, what is being done to try to quell and keep the violence under control from your side?
Israel has engaged in a defensive campaign against a terror organization. Israel Defense Forces respond with precision strikes on terror targets in Gaza Strip. Those targets threaten immediately on Israeli civilians and non-civilians and sovereignty. And and unfortunately, this is the situation. And we need to ask Hamas, why are they firing from schools, from hospitals, hiding behind children and old people? Where's the leadership of Hamas? You know, they're probably hiding under the ground, under a hospital or under a school, because this is the way that they want it.
And one last question: when you say, and certainly those questions are being asked of Hamas, we're taking this opportunity to ask the questions of Israel. When you say that all of the airstrikes are precision strikes, is it your position that everything that has been targeted and hit in Palestinian territories are in fact Hamas sites and headquarters, and does the precision guarantee that civilian neighborhoods are not affected?
Civilian neighborhoods are affected because those are where Hamas store its rockets and its personnel. But I can tell you that there is no military as moral as the IDF. you know that before Israel strikes a building or a compound that we believe that there are missiles, we are trying to call personnel, and you can see video clips all over the social media how an Israeli officer speaks to a guard at a building that we just saw, and making sure everybody is evacuated. When the Air Force of Israel strikes a building or a compound, they first fire a dummy missile that only does noise. And then when we monitor it with drones and we see everybody leaves the compound, only then the Air Force strikes. I don't think there is any Air Force or defense forces that act in this way.
Okay. Israel's Deputy Chief of Mission to Manila, Mr. Nir Balzam, thank you very much.